excused absence. Ian Magnuson, the vice chair, said he was not going to be able to make it tonight. I'm gonna make sure that my stuff is correct. I am rename. There we go. So we're still waiting to hear from Wayne and Scott, and that would be 8, 9, 10, and then who else are we missing? Bobby. Yeah, and I have not heard from Bobby, so hopefully we'll see them pop in momentarily. I just heard that we are live streaming, so we're good there on our second agenda item. Number 3, approval of agenda. I want to point out that I did change up our agenda a little bit in the new business section. I took out the discussion on the Palisades issue of it being closed, and there's been some stuff in the news lately about that. I had asked in an email if anybody was interested in kind of discussing that. We have talked about Palisades issues in the past, just because it's more of a regional issue when you talk about nuclear waste like that. Ian expressed some interest in discussing that, and he said that he's going to get something together as an agenda item for next month. So I'm thinking that we're going to push that back to next month. I don't think anything is supposed to happen with that anytime soon. And I replaced that with discussion of citizen litter concerns that I heard about from Commissioner Hess yesterday, that at the City Commission meeting on Monday, there's a citizen that called in to express concerns generally about litter in the city.
That time of year.
Yeah, that's right. Everything's melting
away, and there's everything just laying out.
Yeah. So are there any questions, concerns, suggestions, additions, deletions to our agenda for today? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, please give me a thumbs up. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think that about does it. Yep, 6. Okay. And 7. Okay. All right. I think we've got our system down with approving past meeting minutes. We didn't have any other corrections to the February 2021 meeting minutes, or we did, and Amber Jane took care of it. So do I have a motion to, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last month?
I will move.
Second.
Great, and I apologize. I meant the January meeting minutes. The February meeting minutes were sent back out. We did get some corrections. There's an assumption when we approve it that they are approved with the corrections that we'll send on to Amber Jane. Dr. Walter did have a few corrections to the minutes. And if you haven't had a chance to read through the minutes yet, there's still time for you to get corrections in. I think we talked about a 1 week or so turnaround with that, where Amber Jane will take some corrections, make the corrections, send it back to us, and then we'll put it into the shared ECC drive. Hey, there's Scott. What's up, Scott? Still just waiting on Wayne today. All right, announcements.
We are about to have peregrine eggs any minute.
Very cool. Is that just in the nest that's on the on the tower?
Yes. Well, it's on the bank building, on the Fifth Third building, and they have, last year, the first egg showed up on St. Patrick's Day.
Mhm.
And they sure have been acting like they are in family planning mode. And so any minute, we'll have the first egg.
Wow.
Great. Is there one family in that nest?
Yes, there's just one pair. They've been here for years. They would not tolerate another pair of adults in the area. So this is their territory, and they put a lot of effort into maintaining it as such.
And how frequently do they reproduce?
Once a year, this time of year.
Okay.
There's a great series of photos on the Facebook page of them having a little romantic interlude on Sunday. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, take a look. The photos are great.
And typically,
Right.
yeah, Scott's already looked it up. And typically, how many are, how many eggs are laid at a time? I mean,
Four eggs. Four
Okay.
eggs. She's laid 4 eggs every year.
Okay. What do you call a group? Like a dog, dogs be a litter.
Clutch.
What?
A clutch.
Clutch. Okay. Okay, cool.
I'd like to share news about the stewards of Clydesdale and their efforts to purchase the 12-acre woodlot next door to the preserve. Incredibly, they've raised almost all of the money. I think they're $20,000 short. They've raised over $387,000 since October 2019 or so. They've got a few grant possibilities. I'm sure they'd still welcome some support, but they have done an incredible community fundraising initiative to acquire that land. The goal is to turn it over to somebody, sometime, somewhere. They don't want to own it forever. As part of their fundraising, they've also acquired are raising money to maintain it in a minimal state, maybe some trail work and stuff. But Heather Ratliff and Aaron Fuller are kind of behind it, and they've just done an amazing job. So a real community effort and something I think we should celebrate.
That's great. So that adjacent land, now you said some trail work. So are the trails in there going to kind of be extended through that property, or?
I believe so. I mean, the preserve is owned by Western, right? And so the stewards will own 12 acres. But the idea is to treat it as one property. And, they're getting way, way down the road. I mean, it's too small for like Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy to take it on, but they would take on the whole property if that would be an opportunity. But a lot of moving parts. The city was interested as well. I think ultimately, there's not any rush, but they clearly don't want to own the land. There is some trails, because everyone thought it was part of Kleinstock forever. And, even the Nature Center has been doing, and Gail, you might know more about this, but they've been doing migratory bird research on that property, I've heard, for something like 30 or 40 years or whatever. So nobody knew it wasn't part of Kleinstock until it went up for sale. So, and I can't even tell you where part of it ends and part of it begins. So, but.
Yeah, that's whatever Joe said is certainly accurate. And there are some trails through there that have been there forever, and it looks just like a contiguous part of Kleinstock. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know that it was privately owned. But there's a couple of parts of Kleinstock that remain in private hands. The trail will go through them, and most people wouldn't have an idea that it was not all under one person ownership or management. So so this is a good thing. And it's the Nature Center has been doing migratory bird and breeding bird surveys out there for decades.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Joe. That's great news. Sharon.
One more announcement.
Mhm.
So Earth Day is coming up, and the Earth Day committee is looking for community submissions for videos of things that are happening in the community that are environmentally friendly on various topics. So if anyone has any things they're tied into and are interested in asking more questions, feel free to direct any questions to me. I'd love to get some more things going.
And Sharon had asked too if maybe the ECC could kind of participate in that. I'd be happy to just record a short video and just talk about kind of 2 or 3 topics that we've been talking about over the last year. Just a short video. Anybody else is welcome to join in on that. You'll have to let me know kind of what format, I guess, Sharon, you want that in. But once I record that video, I'll share it with the committee so that you guys can kind of give some input or feedback. Feel like if I've missed, if I'm not focusing on something that I should be focusing on more. So keep an eye out for that video.
Sharon, is this a subcommittee of the ECC for Earth
No,
Day?
it's not related. This is under announcements. Yeah, it's a Earth Day committee that's been doing this for like 5 years. I've been a part of it the last few years.
Okay, it's not officially associated with the city. It's simply Earth Day. Okay, cool.
Although it had been, of course, Bronson isn't a city park, is it? But that's kind of where it had been for a few years. And Sharon, is it going to be, the idea is to replicate kind of like last year where they had activities all day?
Virtually. Yeah, again,
Virtually, yeah.
virtually. So pretty much the whole week, and the schedule's not out yet, but basically part of it's going to be depending on which kinds of community submissions are submitted. So it's all about, I feel bad, I don't remember the actual theme now, but it's about the community and environmental friendliness in general, basically.
All right, thanks, Sharon. Any other announcements? What's up, Wayne? I see that Mr. Bond has joined us. I also see a Rayleigh Olson. Is that a city?
Yeah, so Rayleigh is actually sitting in, kind of seeing what this is all about, because she's going to help out when Amber Jane is on maternity leave.
Oh, okay, great. Well, welcome, Rayleigh. We appreciate the support and documenting what we're working on here every month.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. All right, I think that's it for announcements. Andy, do we have any comments, citizen comments at this point?
No, there are no comments at this time.
Okay, great. And as we discussed, we'll review again at the tail end of the meeting to see if anybody is, listening and got the bug to call in. All right, taking a look at our unfinished business. So we have a few guests today. Jamie McCarthy is here to give us an update on the NFP map amendment process. And then we also have a couple of construction dudes, Mark Lee and Sean Farrell, although I have never met Sean, so I should not assume that Sean is a dude. Sean could not be a dude. And they're going to talk to us about sustainable construction as we are greatly looking forward to first draft of the sustainability plan. And so hopefully they can kind of speak to what we should be looking for in terms of construction. So Jamie, and I do want to kind of remind everybody that our meeting typically is scheduled from 4:30 until 6 o'clock. And so I'm going to try to do my best to get us wrapped up by 6 o'clock tonight. So Jamie, thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and I can be brief here, but I wanted to come to the ECC and give you guys an update on how the NFP, that's Natural Features Protection Review Board, another city public board, is proceeding with hopefully reintroducing what we're calling our phase 2 map and text amendments to some zoning code that we have. So I'll give just a brief background, and then what I really want to share with you guys are what we see in terms of different steps and different meetings that are going to be happening over the next couple of months. So you can kind of plug in and join the NFP meetings if you're interested in that. So natural features protection is an article within our zoning code, and it helps to, it's an overlay district, so it only applies to certain parcels throughout the city. Right now, we have a pretty limited overlay district that includes just over 300 parcels throughout the city. And what the overlay district does is it applies some additional rules to development, similar to what you see when you go to develop a property or you go to maybe put a new garage or an addition onto your home, right? There's going to be certain setbacks from the property boundaries. So you're not too close to the neighbor. There's rules about kind of what uses can go in what areas of the city. It just kind of puts some bounds around how development happens. And what the NFP rules do is it helps when those properties go up for a new project, new development or redevelopment. It makes sure that the design is also looking at some of the natural features on the property. So if there's water, if it's a stream or a wetland or something, then there's a setback where the building has to, can't be right up to the edge of that. It might have to be set back 15 or 25 feet. It does similar things for really steep slopes with tree cover. It has some rules around the vegetation, the landscaping and planting that goes into that, that's planned for that project. And so these rules went into effect a couple of years ago. They were adopted by City Commission and they live in our zoning code. At the time when those rules were adopted and the overlay district was adopted, we heard right away from the community that the map was pretty incomplete, right? If it was supposed to be protecting and kind of covering the natural features throughout our city, it had some big holes in it. For instance, if you looked at the map, you noticed that not all of the water bodies were within the overlay district. We had lakes, we had creeks that weren't included in the overlay. And so what we did last year in 2020 with the help of the NFP review board, staff put together some analyses using some publicly available data just to say, what should an overlay district look like if it's really, kind of covering and including all of the natural features in the city. And so last fall, the NFP review board made a recommendation to the Planning Commission for a way to expand that map. And at the time, the Planning Commission didn't adopt that and had asked the review board to do a little bit more work to look at it with some of the public comments we had heard and be prepared, this spring to bring a new map forward. And so that's where we're at now. We're to the point where, we've listened and kind of heard what the public had to say last year. We did several months of community engagement. And so we've taken that information. And then we looked at the map from last fall. And I think it's going to be a really similar map that the board recommends, but there are probably going to be some tweaks and changes here and there, kind of in response to what the Planning Commission had told us. But what I wanted to let everybody know is that process is kind of restarting, and we're starting next week at the regular NFP review board meeting. That's Tuesday, March 23rd at 4 p.m. We have invited the planning commissioners to join us. So it's a sort of joint meeting. And what we're going to do is kind of recap some of the details I just told you, the criteria that were worked into that or used for that map last fall, and then talk about the direction that the NFP board wants to take it and listen to the Planning Commission, listen to any public comments to make sure before we sort of reintroduce this, that we're kind of all on the same page where the map has to go. And then following that joint meeting, then you're going to see an engagement schedule from me. I know many of you, you're on our main NFP email list, but we're going to hold a meeting April 20th is the next NFP review board meeting. So we'll give an opportunity for the public to provide input in a more formal way. And then our hope is in early May, we'd send out notice letters and really start the sort of public hearing process. So May will be all about engaging the public. So we'll have a virtual town hall. We'll get more public input at the May NFP meeting. And then our plan is to reintroduce an approved map on June 3rd, something that's recommended by the NFP review board. We'll put that in front of the Planning Commission on June 3rd. And then following that month in June and then into July, we would hopefully get something in front of the city commission if it's recommended by the planning commission. So I just wanted to get those dates on people's calendar and let folks know that we're re-engaging and we're reintroducing this map and hoping to get community support and involvement. And if you have questions, if you want to know the meeting schedule, things like that, I am happy to kind of get that down in an email and send that off to folks. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie?
I just want to make sure I'm on that email for the specific times. I don't know if I got all of those written down right. Thanks.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, Jamie, and I don't think you're going to be able to answer this, but we did have citizen comment last week, and I want to make sure that we are responsive to that. I was hoping that Bobby Glasser was going to be here today, but I haven't seen him pop in yet because we had a question about a specific spot between Stockbridge and Lake Street where there is some green space and a proposed development right there. Unfortunately, without Bobby here, I don't know that any of us can really speak to how the NFP process, how that might be added to the map, if the map might be, expanded to include that area, and then what that might mean for development in that area. Because even if that area were added to the NFP development or the overlay map, the overlay district, it doesn't mean that you can't develop that land. It just means that there are further environmental considerations that you have to put into place in order to do any kind of development. And the site map that we saw, we did see a proposed site map for that development in I believe about a year ago, maybe it was January of last year, and the site map did include several acres of what would still be open green space. I think the idea was to kind of clear out some of the overgrowth that is going on in that area, but to leave the majority of it as still open green space. So hopefully we can get kind of a narrow answer on that question about how the NFP map might apply to that area if it were to include it. And hopefully those citizens have given their input to the NFP process so that they're talking. I know I've talked about it with Bobby, so hopefully they're talking about that at the NFP. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want a quick response to that, Aaron, or you want to take that offline?
That's fantastic.
Sure. So I think the area you're talking about, yes, is between it's on Stockbridge, just west of the city's facility and building there. And you are correct that it's not currently in the current layer or overlay for the NFP, and that it was proposed to be added in the phase 2 map that went before the Planning Commission last fall. Prior to last fall, the property, as you mentioned, though, does have a project plan. It has an approved site plan. That site plan is sort of in force or rules right now, even if it were to be added to the NFP. And it is, that those areas, because of the nature of the properties, because there's wetlands there and woodlands, and because the neighborhood residents reached out, that is included in this phase 2 recommendation. And the site plan, like I said, that would rule, site plans do have a shelf life, somewhere around 12 to 18 months. And so the project could be built to its standards right now. If it didn't happen in that amount of time, then it'd sort of have to be a redo, and then those NFP standards might, then they would, have to follow those. So I think that's kind of where I understand the project is right now.
Okay, thanks. I'd be real curious to know where they are in in that process of breaking ground on that development. So
I don't think that there's a groundbreaking date right now.
yeah, I haven't heard about that either. So all right, any other questions for Jamie about the NFP? All right, hearing none. Jamie, while we've got you, last time we talked about sustainability and climate action plan, maybe April, for us to review. How you looking on your timeline? No pressure. How you looking on your timeline? But we would all like to see it soon, but no pressure. But next
Yeah.
month would be awesome, but no pressure.
So we are moving forward, inching forward. We were able to get our last department review in earlier this week. We have some follow-up and work to do with some of the divisions in this one's public services. They have a big role in a plan like this. And so getting their input was really important. I think we need a little bit more work to kind of get the sort of their sections into format we would want to move forward. And so we're really going to be pushing hard in the next, 6 to 8 weeks to try to get something that city leadership will be able to get their eyes on and kind of help us make sure we're getting something out to you guys that has the support of different departments and the work that they're doing. So yeah, I definitely keep you guys informed. I heard from, you all last month that you really would like that opportunity. And I think it'd be super helpful for us to have sort of a smaller committee of the ECC kind of help us, right after we get our department approvals and kind of their input, then we can bring that out to you guys as sort of our, public/environmental concerns experts to give us your take as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Jamie. All right, moving on to our next agenda item. Let's hear from Mark Lee and Sean Farrell from Better World Builders. Mark and Sean, welcome. Finding you on. Oh, there you are.
Hi.
How's it
Hi,
going?
everybody. Hey, thanks for letting us be part of this. I recognize some great faces out there. Aaron, Gail. Hi, Gail. And Jean, great to see you again too. Shannon. Really great to see all of you folks here. And Jamie, I recognize everybody here. So thanks so much for asking us to be part of this. Aaron, I'm wondering if I have a small little presentation that I could share with just kind of giving some ideas of what addressing sustainability from a citywide level might look like for our housing. Is it possible to have some of that ability?
Yep. Go ahead.
Great. Okay.
Yep. Cool. I think we got it.
You think, are we looking at something there?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, great. So, a dream that I've talked about with some other folks, and just I love Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo, great town, so resilient, so smart and deliberate in some of the actions they're taking right now. It's kind of made that question of how can we make Kalamazoo the most sustainable city in the state. One of the things that we talk about frequently is the buildings in which we work and where we live. And there is a great opportunity because most of the buildings that we live and work in are, they consume about 35% of the energy that out of our whole energy pie. The places where we live, the places where we work, they consume about 35% of our energy. So if we can get that down to a zero number, like a net zero number or a zero net energy number, then we actually could be labeled as the most sustainable city in Kalamazoo. So on that note, I'm going to talk about some of the process that you go through, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. And then I'll highlight and I'll end it with a little example of a simple house that we did in Portage. Believe it or not, Portage, Michigan is doing better than we are in some cases. In this one specifically, and I'll just share a case study that we did out there. So when I talk about housing, and this is really geared toward the residential housing, can be rental housing as well. There's opportunity within the commercial zone too, but I'm just going to focus on the residential side just to talk about the opportunity there. Most houses in this area pay between $2,300, $2,500 a year for their energy. Most of that that cost is not to plug in our computer or our other essential or refrigerators, but actually more than 50% of that cost is just to heat and cool the house. So many of the houses in our area are practically naked in the sense of that they don't have very good insulation, and they're not very well air sealed. And so a stiff wind comes by, and all of a sudden the heat that you've been generating in your house almost flies out the window, can literally fly out the window. Another fact here is most of the houses were built before 1995 in the city of Kalamazoo. I think this actually is true to the point where about 97% of the houses in the city of Kalamazoo are built before 1995. Of these houses, there's on average, most of them waste about 30% or more energy of that heating and cooling energy. Understanding that another piece that I hear frequently, the idea of affordable housing, the idea of attainable and affordable energy efficiency. When we look at this whole picture of where we live, when you have an inefficient house, many of us probably saw this in February. Whoops. Many of us probably saw this in February, a lot of icicles hanging from roofs. Every icicle that's hanging from a roof, that's a sign that heat's being lost up into the attic. It's also a sign that it decreases the roof life expectancy. So if you consider that housing costs, having sustainable housing costs, being able to have a full roof life out of your roof means that you get a full 30 years out of it. Whereas if a house that has icicles on it, it's going to get closer to like 15 years of roof life, and then you're going to have to replace that roof system. So we talk about that in the sense of the ongoing cost of wasting energy. Here's a few points to understand. Decreased roof life makes housing more expensive. Having wood rot or moisture get into the house or mold in the attic decreases health and effectiveness for every individual in that household, as well as lowers the life expectancy of that house. Water damage, damp basements. These are all just kind of costs of when you're living in a house that does not perform well. Another part, this is a great little diagram, but it talks about steps. It would be great if we all had, if we could just turn the key and everything just goes from burning fossil fuels, consuming a lot of electricity, to generating our own solar electricity on site. But the fact of the matter is, you got to take steps to make that happen. So planning this part out, I think, is a really key part in the whole strategic direction that I think the city has, is planning this out so that we can make this attainable for our homeowners. And I'll talk about that in a minute at the end of this part of the presentation. But this just talks about steps. There's behavioral things that we can teach in the schools. There's homeowner practical things that can happen. We can do workshops on that. Air sealing and insulation, frequently that can be done by homeowners, but sometimes best left to professionals. Looking at how we actually, what equipment we're using to heat and cool and heat up our water, and so on. All these steps can you lower the demand, then you can increase then you can start to make your own energy on site. One of the things that we start off with is we talk about houses as a system. So this is where we get into doing energy audits for a house. Some of you folks have experienced an energy audit with Better World Builders, and we basically look at where is the best opportunity to make that house more energy efficient. I'll breeze through these, but I'm happy to share this. If I could share this with the group at the end. Email this. That sounds like a good idea. I'll do that. But key parts in making a house energy efficient is defining the boundaries. It's kind of like putting on a windbreaker of your house. When the boundaries are defined correctly and the boundaries are insulated properly, you can actually have a house that performs. Many of the houses in Kalamazoo are of mediocre or low performance. A lot of houses outside of the newer houses are more geared toward performance houses. The performance house means that it's safe and healthy. So you're looking at carbon monoxide, you're looking at mold, you're looking at asbestos, and houses that are durable, houses that don't create icicles. are more durable than houses that create icicles. And comfortable, obviously, we all live in a house or an apartment that, the main reason is we want to stay safe and safe from the elements. We want to have a safe place to be, and being comfortable leads to a whole bunch of benefits, health-wise, productivity-wise, family love-wise. Everything involved in being comfortable is part of that. And then performance houses are also energy efficient. A lot of houses, this is what the problem is. They have some old failed insulation. Some of it's not in the right place, or there's just big gaps that allow heat to escape out. For instance, this is a house on Broadway or in the Winchell neighborhood. But it's a ranch style house. They had a lot of insulation up in their attic, but they still had these huge icicles. The main reason why they had these icicles is the ventilation in their soffit system was not connected, as well as the attic was not sealed away from the house. So a lot of heat just rose up and melted things on the roof. There's a lot of opportunities that can talk about that. That's what this slide talks about, where some of those opportunities lie. These are part of the analysis that goes into an energy audit. So homeowners or even landlords can kind of gauge, like, hey, where are my problems and what should I solve first? These are showing, areas where the blue areas are areas where it's not insulated. So just cold spots that are connected to the outside. Sometimes we run into just garbage insulation, just showing out a couple examples of what happens to clean those things up. In here, what I'm talking about here is a lot of times houses that we live in, and this is such a significant thing that happens in many of the houses, low income, middle income, high income houses. Many people don't realize that their house actually can make them sick. How can it make them sick? Through mold. Mold can grow in many conditions. Mold grows and thrives in the same conditions that we like as humans. We like to live in a moist environment. We like to live in that temperature zone between 60 and 80 degrees. And guess what? That's where mold likes to live too. So, if we had the same type of rainfall that we had last spring this year, I know in the city dealt with a lot of low-income housing in the Vine neighborhood, over here by J&J Glass in my neighborhood. It was all flooded. A lot of people had water just pouring in their basement. Those things had long-term effects of, if it wasn't addressed well and addressed right and dried out well, then a lot of mold came into the house, and that affects a lot of the health and well-being of our citizens. Asbestos, this is a picture of this kind of this gray squirrely looking stuff is vermiculite insulation. We run into this about 1 in every 20 houses in Kalamazoo that has this asbestos based insulation. It could rain down from any light fixture. If it's over your head in the attic, it can rain down from any light fixture. And so this causes lung cancer. Another thing we run into in a lot of houses is animal excrement. So mouse poop, rat poop, a whole bunch of other things. That their excrement dries out. It creates breathing issues in the house, in the human body. Same with other safety issues, dirt crawl spaces, carbon monoxide. These are good examples of what we see, a sample of what we see throughout all the houses in Kalamazoo. So just trying to go through these ideas to say, let's fix these things. As you're fixing these things, you get the side benefit of you're dropping your energy bill up to 30 to 50%. One house we did over on Ridge Road, just off of Bronson Boulevard, we dropped their energy bill by 70%, and it was the person who lived there was just super happy about it because they had $1,000 winter bills and it went down to $300. The steps to correct just kind of involve everything from taking out the dirty insulation, treating it, re-insulating it, replacing it with new equipment that's energy efficient. And really driving home that the indoor air quality is a key part. This is a sample of what we do. How we do it is we try to lay it out in levels so that homeowners have this option of saying, if you're going to do one thing to your house, if you're going to invest $1 in your house to make it more comfortable and efficient, where should you start? And so we just try to break it down by level 1. And then after level 1 is done, then a year may pass or 2 years may pass, and we say, let's go on to level 2, and then so on. And all these levels are this basic idea of taking those steps. There's a lot of programs out there that can help us, and I think this is where the city may try to leverage some maybe financing or even tax basis information for landlords. I got some ideas about that. In a later time, we'd love to get more into that, but presently, things that you should know about: there's some tax credits available. If you have insulation, if you have like vermiculite insulation, that asbestos-based insulation up in your attic, there's rebates for that. Consumers Energy provides about $3,500 of rebates, and then there's really easy attainable financing through our state energy bank, which is called Michigan Saves, but it's a home energy financing program. It works really well for a lot of folks. This is just kind of the steps 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5. You know, the awareness, getting a plan, correcting the building, right sizing the HVAC equipment, deep energy retrofits, and solar opportunities. So that's some of that information. You know, at this point, I have one other piece to just share, and I'll be real brief about it. Am I overstepping my time limit here? Yes, no?
No, please continue.
Am I going too fast then?
No, this is perfect. You're doing a great job.
Okay, great. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
So this is a really wonderful example of what's possible. So this house was built in 1955. You know, Portage grew out of Kalamazoo. I mean, we got these old houses. One of a pride and joy of ours is we did. I have a whole presentation on this one too, if you want it. But there's an 1835 built farmhouse. It was the James L. Wood house. It's built on Oakland Drive right now, but we took their house and made it a really nice place for those homeowners to live in. But Kalamazoo's been building houses since 1830s, and some of those houses still exist. You know, obviously, at some point in time, Portage really started to bump out, and they developed a little later than us. But you know, their housing stock is ripe. Our housing stock in Kalamazoo is even better. There's even better opportunities here. This is a great little case study. And then the homeowner, who is a big fan of just having a mission to build a better world. I was really grateful to be involved with him. His name's Bart Litchens, but he helped. He took his house and he practically made it a zero net energy house. And we've been with him the whole way through it. I'm really proud to say that he's very close to hitting that spot. We just have one appliance to eliminate, and then he'll be just about there. But this is another one. I'll send this to you. It is basically a flow chart of understanding. Like you can see on the left side, the current situation of his house. He had an oversized heating and cooling equipment. His rooms were not heating very well. There was poor performance in the bathroom and kitchen fans. He wanted to become more energy efficient, but he didn't have the knowledge at first to figure out how to get there. He also had old combusting fuels. So in our industry, there is this thing called beneficial electrification. And beneficial electrification is simply the idea of eliminating our gas-fired furnaces, our gas-fired water heaters, eliminating our gas-fired stoves, and turning these all into electrical-based houses, because you can actually eliminate a lot of well, you could create your own electricity on site with solar panels. You can't create your own natural gas on your own property. So natural gas, it's got some. I used to believe that it was the answer, but what I've really found out is natural gas is a great bridge to get us to the future. It's relatively cheap, and it is it's accessible right now. But moving forward, going in the future, going to these all electric houses is going to be what is normal. In 15, 20 years from now, all electric houses is going to be the norm, and having gas, propane, fuel oil, heated houses is going to be a thing of the past. Natural gas has, it's basically methane. So methane's a greater greenhouse gas. If it leaks, then we're actually creating more greenhouse gases. So kind of eliminating natural gas in our system is a great thing to try to achieve. There's a bunch of natural gas leaks. Matt Grokoff from Ann Arbor, he has this great study that he did and showed how natural gas is leaking all over our city. We find it when we go in houses, we'll check gas lines, and about 1 out of 5 houses will have a gas leak in it. And there's a bunch of gas leaks that are underneath our streets and whatnot, but I'm going off on a little bit of just explaining what our current situation and how that impacts sustainability. But continuing on what Bart had prepared on here, he just looked at his house. He knew he had a relatively simple house, and there's opportunities there. He had some old technology in his house, and then his new what his desired is to get to a zero net energy comfortable house. So he followed the ABCs: get an energy audit, go for dropping his energy load by getting this air sealing and insulating properly, make sure it's ventilated properly so he can have a healthy, safe environment inside his house, and then continue going on electrifying everything else that he could in his house, his cars, his appliances, etc., and then use a renewable energy resource such as photovoltaic cells. There we go. So just a couple pictures on here. I'll breeze through these, but he used Helio Solar, another local Kalamazoo-based company. They're based right downtown. He's been committed. He actually got his license plate, solar up. Real fun guy, but his roof essentially was not big enough to handle the amount of electricity his house needs. So a 4.6 kilowatt system on his roof is just not quite enough. So lowering the load was a key part for him. This is where Better World Builders got involved. We helped with testing the house, sealing the house, insulating it, dense packing his walls, taking care of all the thermal imaging leaks, using spray foam, using the right equipment and the right insulation and the right techniques to effectively and efficiently make a house more efficient. Once you get into this world, we start to talk about, houses that get too tight. There's this perception that too tight of houses can make you a sick house, which is true, but that's where you have proper ventilation. So you keep the occupants of the house safe. That's always our primary thing. Indoor air quality is a must. I guess I can always go into more on that one, but it can be an involved topic, but we love talking about it. This was another great thing. So instead of having a natural gas furnace, he went with an air source heat pump, air conditioner and furnace. Now, if I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this term, air source heat pump. Not many. Okay. If anyone has heard of like geothermal, the idea of geothermal, that's actually received more press. Geothermal, this is idea of you bore some pipes down into the earth. The earth is a constant temperature of like 55 degrees. So you're able to extract out that constant temperature, and then you concentrate it through refrigeration loops inside your house, and you either are creating heat off of it or you're creating air conditioning off of it. Heat pumps, air source heat pumps specifically, are a game changer. Like, this is the piece that we've actually been missing for a while. And interestingly enough, it kind of happened because of what air source heat pumps do is they extract heat out of the air, and they can extract heat out of the air. Like current technology, we can go down to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and air source heat pumps can actually pull heat out of the air at negative 15 degrees, Michigan style winters, negative 15 degree air, and it can pull that heat out, and then it transfers that heat inside your house, and then your blower on the inside of your house will then distribute that heat throughout the whole house. So it's great stuff. It's based off of this refrigeration cycle. If you think of your refrigerator in your house, it's kind of the same idea. You know, many of us have a refrigerator. You open up the door, it's nice and cool inside. You open up the bottom and the freezer is very cold. But if you put your hand behind the refrigerator, you feel this excess heat coming out of the back of the refrigerator. It's basically the same concept. All we're doing is we're removing heat from one spot to another spot. In this case, air source heat pumps are moving during the wintertime. It's removing heat from outside and it's pumping it into the house. In the summertime, it removes heat from inside the house and pumps that outside. And so it's just this constant back and forth with a switching valve. It's great stuff. It works wonderfully, and it's been a game changer for how you get to beneficial electrification. The same thing actually is happening with water heaters. So instead of having gas-fired water heaters, we're installing these air source heat pump water heaters, which takes the basement air that's in your house. It pulls out the heat out of the basement air, and then it puts it into the water tank. You have a nice hot shower, and it goes on from there. This just talks about the air handler unit, and basically his mission was accomplished. He's living the life in his nice 1955 modernized ranch style home in Portage, but he's living the life of, he's more comfortable. He's got humidity control. His indoor air quality is measured and precise. He's reduced his carbon footprint. Oh, and then the other thing, I didn't mention this, but there is certifications that are out there for houses, so that can increase the value. So this is part of the whole value proposition of investing money in our housing. That's a little bit. I have some extra data on this. We can go into that, or I will share this though. But even Bart was really kind of keen on this idea of, how do we scale this to a whole neighborhood and then to a whole city? Kalamazoo, how many neighborhoods are there? I think there's 23 separate neighborhoods between, the Vine neighborhood, Westwood, Edison. I think there's 23, something like that. Maybe just to plant some seeds of ideas is maybe we try to make it a little bit of a competition and use that Vine Pride or use that Edison neighborhood, that leverage that each neighborhood has to say, how much can each neighborhood drop in their energy use? And maybe there's some opportunities to even leverage some of our underrepresented neighborhoods to actually increase the value of their houses by increasing the energy efficiency and the health and safety in those houses. And then once we start to get neighborhoods involved, maybe then we adapt it for the whole city. And then we take on the challenge of, well, what does Kalamazoo, can Kalamazoo beat Holland, Michigan, or can Kalamazoo beat Jackson or Ann Arbor as being more sustainable? What would that look like? So just planting some ideas. The basic point of this is it's possible, and it's possible now with the right guidance from this organization, from our city leaders, from our county leaders. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to say, we could rally behind this idea of like, we actually can become. We've been known for the Kalamazoo Promise. We could become known as the most sustainable city in the state of Michigan. Recently that little article, I'm sure most of you saw that, of Kalamazoo being one of the most valuable places to live as far as housing is concerned. We have tremendous opportunity in actually elevating our presence and our ability to find additional value in the houses that we have. So that's a little bit of what I have to share with you guys. I'm open to talking any further. If you guys have any questions, I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark and Sean, for that presentation. Yeah, and if you want to share that with me in an email, I will upload your presentation to, we have a shared ECC Google Drive. Any questions for Mark and his presentation here? Rob?
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch, but I'll probably have to catch you offline or whatever, but I just had a few. So what percentage of work do you do on new builds versus like renovating existing structures?
So, for the most part, Better World Builders, we thrive on the idea of doing retrofits. So probably about 90% of our work is taking existing buildings and retrofitting them to perform like a new house. The underlying belief, company direction wise, has been and will continue to be, is like when houses are well maintained and they're cared for and they're efficient and they're safe, they're gonna last the test of time. When houses get to this point where they're not well maintained, they're not well insulated, they decay rather quickly and they become dozer bait. So the idea of doing existing houses is more, I think it's a lot more sustainable than trying to say, hey, let's knock down this house and build a new house. And when we build this new house, we'll make it more energy efficient. But now we just created a whole bunch of landfill waste. We just harvested a whole bunch of new materials to build this new house and put in all this fancy insulation when we actually probably could have, if done well, like that when the neighborhood stabilization program was coming around, 12, 15 years ago, they did those houses really well, and it made a difference. A lot of those houses are still standing, and had they not had that work done, probably several of them would have gone to dozer bait. Does that answer your question, Rob?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think the environmental impact of creating something from nothing is much more impactful than trying to fix an existing thing. Unfortunately, it's kind of like a careful balance on whether or not something is salvageable or not. But yeah, this is something I'm pretty familiar with. I've moved around a lot and owned a couple different homes and tried to educate myself along the way. But one thing I didn't hear you touch on was kind of like passive solar building. So we always looked for kind of an east-west orientation towards the equator and everything, with most of the windows, facing, southern exposure in the north or whatever. Are you trying to raise awareness about that? Because even when I talk to consumers, going through mortgage companies, they have energy efficiency mortgages, which is just like a circus trying to jump through some of those hoops. Have you ever worked with that?
Right. So, since we do a lot with existing builds, we just have to accept how they're built. The city was laid out in a grid, and the houses were laid out inside that grid. So there's not a lot of reorientation that we do along that line. But to talk about that piece of energy efficiency, like loans that are out there, we have dealt with those a little bit, and then a lot of the houses that we work on, we actually certify them. So they when we're done with our work, we could do a blower door test, we could certify the amounts of insulation, we could certify the performance of the house, and so we submit that, and we give this thing called Pearl certification. And Pearl certification basically is it's a nice tool for helping account for it. Comes with an appraisal addendum. So it can state that the house is energy efficient, and that energy efficient house actually improves the resale value of those houses that have this certification. It increases them by between 5 and 11%. So that's one of the ways we can help build equity in houses by saying, hey, these houses actually work and they're certified. I imagine some of the people in this group probably they may have purchased a house, or maybe they have rented a house where they have to pay for the energy bill, and they rented it or they bought it in the summer, and so everything was fine and hunky-dory. Then winter came along, and then there was that like, oh shucks moment, like, wow, I'm getting a bill that's $300 or $400 to heat my house, and I'm still drafty, I'm still cold. These certified houses kind of helps take away some of that surprise for those that new homeowner or that new renter, out there.
Is that something you created? Is it the state, or how does it kind of translate into LEED certification?
So it is. That's a great question, Rob. So it's not something I created, but I'm proud to say that Better World Builders was the first contractor in the state of Michigan to be asked to be a Pearl partner. But you could type it out if you search on the internet, Pearl certification. It is it's a nationwide certification that's happening, and it is being adopted through a lot of states and realtor boards, as well as banks and appraisers. So that way, it's becoming more commonplace. You know, right now it's relatively in its infancy, but it's been a certification. We've been part of it for about I would say 3 years. But it's a great certification program. If you went to their website, pearlcertification.com, you can actually type in your zip code, and then you'll see all these little bubbles in your neighborhood that have this Pearl certification.
Okay.
A lot of those were done by Better World Builders or Bartholomew Heating and Cooling. So I don't know, just putting that out there. It's a great way to continue to add value to a house.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely check it out. And Aaron, if I could just have one more question. Mark, obviously you're a huge advocate for this if you're coming to the committee and everything. And I mean, I struggle raising people's awareness, my neighbors, and just starts local and everything. My one neighbor doesn't even have a recycling bin because she can't fill out the form to get through the application process. Like, what would you ask of us or ask of the mayor or the city to raise awareness to put in effect some of these programs that you're advocating for, that I think everyone should take a part of to make their existing home more sustainable?
Right. You know, I don't quite know yet, Rob. You know, the raising awareness, you know, I think that is a big challenge. So in some ways where some of the awareness part, I think could actually be a commitment by the city or even neighborhood associations to say, yeah, I want our neighborhood. I want my, you know, we're based in the Edison neighborhood here. We're right across the street from Edison Elementary. But like, you know, it would be great if the Edison neighborhood made a statement that like, I would like to see our Edison neighborhood become the most sustainable neighborhood in the city of Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me personally, I think putting out challenges like that could help people in our city achieve a broad idea. That broad idea being what sustainability looks like and how do we get behind it as a city. There are mechanisms, that we can use and leverage, such as, you know, we can leverage things. We offer a financing program, you know, and it's a fairly inexpensive interest rate. It's about 4.5% to 5.5%. But, you know, maybe this is where if the city or the Foundation for Excellence was able to say, hey, you know what, any household within the city of Kalamazoo, if they wanted to pursue energy efficiency in their house, maybe the first 5 years would be at 0% financing. You know, that may give that little bit of tipping point for that household to say, you know what, I'm willing to take on this loan payment. My loan payment might be $200 a month, but it's at 0% interest. So my loan payment is now actually $170 a month. And in addition to that, I'm saving another $60 a month on my energy bill. So I've made an improvement in my house. It's more comfortable, it's healthier, and it's only costing me $100. It's costing me one night out a week, or one night out a month, like $100 to have that in their grasp. That's an idea. You know, Kalamazoo, what is the number? It's something like 50% of the houses in Kalamazoo are rental, are landlord owned. It's a big number. You know, I mean, having more home ownership would be great in Kalamazoo, but taking the guys who are taking those landlords and saying, you know, how do you incentivize them? I've toyed around with this idea. I don't know yet, but I do believe that a 0% piece would help them. if the landlords were also, if say the landlords were saying, well, I'll take over the 100% of the energy bill of any of my rental properties, maybe there's a point where we could say, instead of having to pay that extra 18 mils of property tax for a rental house, maybe it's reduced down to 16 mils. Maybe there are some ideas to encourage landlords to get on board. If we could tip the scale with landlords or tip the scale with regular residential homeowners, we can get some momentum going. But I think there's this is where perhaps a breakout from the ECC, a breakout group from the ECC could actually brainstorm ideas to help promote it and actually put put our minds together to make something a reality.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you need any help, I'd like to volunteer, and I can try and get with you offline too.
Great, thanks, Rob.
Awesome, thanks, Rob. I'm looking at 5:40. Does anybody else have like a burning question for Mr. Lee? All right, seeing none. Mark and Sean, thanks so much for presenting tonight. You gave us a lot to chew on. As we are hoping to have a draft of the Kalamazoo Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, hopefully in the next couple of months. And we'd love to have you guys be a part of, I'm going to open it up, kind of a voluntary work session for any ECC members that want to come and really kind of pour over that plan with a fine-tooth comb. And I'd be really interested to see that last piece that you were talking about, where you're getting to the nitty-gritty about mills and all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of what you're talking about, you presented, I'd love to have you come do that to my house. But that upfront cost is a barrier. But when we're talking about the overall cost savings, I think that it's going to be a big thing that we can do with the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan is look at where those cost savings are for the city, for residents, for landlords, for businesses, whoever, where those cost savings can come when we're talking about reducing energy use overall. And I think if we can look for some very specifically crafted ideas about, okay, there's cost involved here. Where do we get the money for that cost? What's the trade-off? And there's lots of different pieces, but if we can find a small number of them where we know what the cost is up front, here's how we can get that paid for, and then here's the immediate cost savings overall for consumers, for businesses, for the city. I think that would be, that's where my head is at when we're looking at reviewing the sustainability plan and getting something that will have a legitimate impact on our carbon output and just general efficiency. That cost savings piece is a big deal, because we all come here, I think we're all in agreement that the earth is getting warmer. The polar ice caps are melting. And if the people at the top of our government are unwilling to do anything about it because they don't believe it, there's a lot of people that agree with them. But if we can show them where we're going to be able to save money for the average consumer, now we're going to be able to kind of change some minds and get some folks on board with the idea of doing this bigger. And it's a meaty plan that with the draft that we looked at, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I really look forward to being able to collaborate with you guys over the next few months.
Hey, Aaron. I wonder if Sharon's Earth Day committee might take on a piece of the awareness and create that for the city. Just wondering.
So I'll say Mark's been on the Earth Day committee as well. And
let's just make it one big Earth celebration.
Yeah, it's really open to what the community wants, how they want to be involved in different things for Earth Day. So yeah, people are very welcome to be promoting these types of things via that. That's a big part of it. So. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Right. Yep. One other comment I want to make, and this is, just the whole energy efficiency idea, what we do, it's a job creator also. And this is a point that I think within our city, within maybe maybe even the tentacles of the Kalamazoo Promise, being able to develop people and give them opportunities, young folks, to give them opportunities to learn about what housing's about, what building is about, what energy efficiency is about, because these are topics that are gonna not go away in our society. From this day forward, these things are not going away without attention to them. So, right now, Better World Builders, we are hiring. If you guys know of anyone who is interested in making a better world, reach out to us, because we could use some help on it. But more importantly is that there's great opportunity, because this is really local. It's hyper local, to the point of saying, my neighbor can have Better World Builders or X company come by and know how to do home performance, and they're giving me a job because I'm doing it right next door, or I'm just doing it down the block. And so this is where there's some really wonderful opportunity to create some good paying jobs, and as well as help save the environment. So just plugging away on that one. I'm serious about that. We are hiring right now. So if anyone is interested,
Right.
Shannon, you've applied before. We're ready for you now. So come on over.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark and Sean. You guys are welcome to hang out and listen to the rest of our discussion. You are also welcome to move on to your St. Patrick's Day festivities. And I appreciate you holding off, because it was quite late in the day to start your St. Patrick's Day.
We both really appreciate the opportunity to talk with the Environmental Concerns Committee, and thank you everyone who's on this committee, for believing in the environment and believing that there's something positive that we can really do together. I think it's great to see all these great faces. So thank you guys for the work that you're doing on it too.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Cheers.
Yep. All right, moving back to our agenda, we've got about 13 minutes left here. So we're gonna do a speed round, okay? Sharon, how is the Styrofoam pilot project coming?
Great. The city of Kalamazoo has Facebook events for all 4 of the dates, and in there is a link to the mural submission for anyone in the community, anyone that knows any artists in the community. That is open through the end of the month for proposing a mural that is wanted. And I'd say just check out Facebook for the details. And if you are off Facebook, let me know and I'll email it to you.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Sharon. And I am really looking forward to that first date next month. So, okay, so last month, we talked about, I mentioned that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services had indicated that they were going to do some inquiry into air quality on kind of the northeast side of town, around the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant, and near Graphic Packaging. Of course, we have discussed at length the odor nuisance issues. And again, I don't say odor nuisance because I think that it's only a nuisance and just kind of irritating. That's the state rule. State 901 or Eagle Rule 901 relates specifically to nuisance odor, kind of quality of life issues. Now, there have been other concerns about, yes, it stinks and it's unpleasant, but is that odor having an effect on our health generally in the area? And so the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is planning to issue a report. They're doing a data review right now. I spoke with Bill Farrell from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I didn't speak with him. He emailed me back. He's not able to give me a timetable on when they will be when they'll be ready to release that report, but it will be public information once it gets released. They are working with, they're using some of the data that the water reclamation plant has collected. I believe that they are also looking at putting up a few more air monitoring stations through Eagle. And they're also relying on the feds, I think, for a little bit of expertise through EPA and the ATSDR. And I apologize, I can't remember what that stands for. I had it memorized before the meeting, and now I've lost it. But it's like the air toxics, basically, where there's kind of a national database, and they've got some general standards. So we're very much looking forward to the release of that report, so we can kind of get an answer to that question. Is this foul air that we have been smelling here for the last 40 years, having a deleterious effect on our health? Update on EEE mitigation efforts and aerial spraying. We had discussed in the fall, Dr. Walter had put together a little research article looking at the relative risks and benefits of aerial spraying to try to knock down the mosquito population, typically in the fall into August, September, when we see EEE cases start to crop up in horse populations. Is it deer too, Dr. Walter? But most importantly, in our communities and in our neighbors. So we had talked about maybe trying to share that paper with Portage Environmental Concerns Committee. I've been in touch with those folks, and with the county's Environmental Health Advisory Committee. Dr. Walter?
I don't, what I did, and I forwarded this to Aaron so he could put it on the Google Drive. The 2020 summary from the state on the arbovirus outbreak for Michigan. Last year was really, a challenge with the COVID because Dr. Walker from MSU had planned to do a lot of monitoring and testing of mosquito pools and populations around the state specifically for EEE, and because of COVID, he was not able to do that. He was not able to do testing because the materials that he needed for testing were kind of subverted for COVID testing. So hopefully this year will be different and better for that kind of surveillance and monitoring. And I don't know, Aaron, if you've been in touch with Ned Walker to see what his plans are going forward for 2021.
I have. He is planning on continuing that pilot project this year, and really with that eye of not only the early monitoring piece, where we're collecting that specific species of mosquito to try to figure out if we should expect that EEE is coming. But he mentioned specifically using those cubes, using those black boxes to really try an effort to mitigate mosquito reproduction right at the source. Mm-hmm. He had, I don't think he's using Bishop's Bog this year. He spoke about, or he emailed about a couple of spots in Vicksburg, I think. So his efforts are continuing this summer, and he's in contact with Vern Johnson, the environmental health director for the county. So that project continues.
Okay. So I can update my little paper if you want on the information from 2020. And the state did, spray, of course, last year. Not as much as they did in 2019, but it was not as big of a year for mosquitoes and disease as it was in 2019. So they sprayed 462,000 acres, and there was there were no cases that developed after that. There were only 3 human cases, one of which resulted in a death, because those are the numbers. And there was no reported consequences of the aerial spraying. You know, there were no reports from emergency rooms, no reports of detrimental effects to bees or other, you know, anything else in the report that I printed out from the state. So, you know, if you want to share that with the other local entities, you're certainly welcome to do that and see if they, you know, want to use it for their own, you know, information, or they want to, you know, modify it to provide information to people in their municipality. You know, that is fine. And I need to review what I wrote because it's been a while since I've looked at it. And, you know, and maybe I can put in the numbers from 2020 as well as leave the numbers in from 2019. So anyway,
That's
I'm glad to hear that he's going to be able to monitor, because you know, one of the challenges is, you know, when you just use the incidence of horse cases, you're too late, because you know, you'll find horse cases and human cases at the same time. It's not that the horse cases necessarily precede human cases, and that's what the benefit of the monitoring is like to try to find out what's going on in the mosquito population before you get, you know, human cases, and hopefully before you get horse cases as well. So it'll be good that he is going to be able to do that this year. Hopefully we won't get another pandemic or snafu in the world that will preclude that. So that'll be great, because of if he's able to decrease the infection rate in the mosquitoes and monitor at the same time, that's a double whammy on the mosquitoes. So it's great.
Yeah, so if you want to maybe try to send me your updated paper before next month's meeting, I'll share it with everybody on the committee. Hopefully everybody will have time to kind of review it, see if we've got any questions, you know, any back and forth about it. And then maybe at next month's meeting, we can kind of take a vote to approve, you know, sending it to the Portage Board, sending it to the county board. And, you know, I can send an email to city staff about how we might go about like posting that paper on the city's website, you know, where the ECC's little page is on the city website. I'm not sure, you know, that probably has to go through city staff, city manager's office, city attorney, and all that stuff. So, but we could probably vote on that next week, and I can send, or next month, and I can send that stuff out to see if we can try to get that common messaging between city, county, and Portage.
Well, hopefully it's just, you know, the intent was to make it an informational kind of little white paper, and, you know, try not to be too dogmatic about, you know, what should or should not be done, but, you know, give people the resources to be able to gather their own information and make their own decision.
Okay. Any comments on mosquito mitigation, triple E spraying? All right, hearing none, we can move on. Our one piece of new business this week, discussion of citizen litter concerns. Commissioner Hess, I know you heard from citizen a few days ago. You want to kind of go over that briefly, and then we can kind of get to it again when we're looking at the waste management and litter group.
And I just saw that, and I would love to work with you, Sharon, on the litter thing. Because what this is we had a caller on Monday night at the city commission meeting who was very upset about the litter in her neighborhood. I looked into it a bit, and then ended up meeting with some KDPS officers who are actually doing blight pickup, litter pickup beginning this week or next week. they're beginning on the east, in the east side, on the east side neighborhoods. They're going to Edison after that, north side after that, and then they're going to hit all the neighborhoods with blight kind of pickup. However, that is a reactive thing. What I would love to see us do in the city is be proactive about this. And what you said about triple E is let's eliminate it at the source of the people. Let's teach the people. Let's have a way of telling the people that litter just doesn't work. I was speaking with the city manager today, and he talked with Jim Baker, who said that we cannot handle all of the litter, all of the solid waste that's coming through in the sewer system. We simply can't handle that as a city. So what we have to do is just I think, a large educational campaign. And I'd love to work with Sharon and whoever would like to kind of have our citizens treat the earth a little bit better.
I'd like to point out that it's not, the beginning of the problem is not the humans that are littering, but we have this as the standard substances that we're using for all of our packaging, single use,
Right.
and all of that has been especially on the rise. So while we do need to like be proactive and encourage not littering, like I think there's other ways to think about this that we should also consider.
Thank you. I'd love to work on that with you. And I'm walking through my neighborhood and just seeing people throw their masks and their gloves and all their COVID related things on the side of the road. But yes, that the educational campaign can definitely talk about eliminating single-use products. So yeah, we're looking at that as a city, and it needs to happen.
If I could also I would also ask if there could be some insight from the individuals in the community as well, because whenever education pieces are happening, especially in minority areas, it's not taken as serious because there is no, one, engagement of individuals that they trust, two, an actual understanding of why it's important for them in the here and now, especially when it's more likely it's a community that is struggling because of the pandemic. So just by laying the blame at the feet of the individuals in the area isn't necessarily the proper call.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Anybody else? Wait. So Sharon and I did chat for a couple minutes last night. We've got our subcommittees, and we're kind of moving on to subcommittee reports here. So Sharon is doing the waste management and litter committee. Sharon's done a tremendous job with getting the styrofoam pilot project off the ground. But everybody's busy, and so to do all these subcommittees kind of on a regular monthly basis can be kind of a big ask. So Sharon and I kind of discussed maybe like a small working group or whatever, with like a goal in mind, and meet X number of times, and come up with a few bullet points of what we think the ECC's recommendations can be, whether it's to the city commission or to city staff to look at, have a review of what we're already doing, what city staff is doing, and what private groups are doing as far as litter pickups, all that kind of stuff. So Commissioner Hess, I hear you saying that you would like me to put your name where I currently have a question mark next to Sharon's name on the waste management, the august and world famous waste management and litter subcommittee of the ECC.
If she'll have me, I'm ex officio, but like if you'll have me, Sharon, I'd love to work on it.
Okay. Awesome.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else want? And I would love to get in on there. I tend to run I'll try to have I'll have my talking points, and then I'll leave it and try not to run my big mouth too much. Would anybody else like to join this group again, kind of with the idea in mind to come up with some, a reasonable number of concrete recommendations on how we can reduce litter in the city? That's Rob.
I'd be open to being on it in May once I am done with my studies.
Okay,
Sorry.
and I would imagine it will take us a few months to take a look at it. All right, that's a big committee. It's a big subcommittee. And so, you know, we'll probably put email request out for, you know, for a meeting for that to get started. And of course, anybody else would be welcome to join at that point too, or just, you know, submit your, you know, your ideas through email. All right, let's quickly get through our subcommittee reports. It's 6:05 and I have corned beef waiting for me. So I apologize. It's probably not the greatest thing for the guy from the ECC to be so excited about my beef dinner, but baby steps, Sharon, baby steps. Okay. NFP review board, we did just kind of have an update on that from Jamie, and Bobby is not here for that tonight. Air and water quality, that is right now, that's myself and Bobby. I also invited Wayne and Scott. Wayne took a look at that, the air toxics website on the EPA a few months back. And Scott has been to a couple of the odor task force meetings. I've been kind of dragging my feet on meeting, but we are going to have a meeting in the next month or so. I think it's maybe next weekend, before our next ECC meeting with a Dr. Daniel Bronner, an epidemiologist from Western, to talk about air quality and you know, what kind of effects that might be having, what kind of data we've seen, you know, because we had the doctor from Chicago come and speak to us about his concerns, you know, looking at elevated asthma levels, asthma rates, you know, in and around the northeast side of the city. So we're going to try to dig into that a little bit deeper with a local epidemiologist, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of report back out on that and bring Dr. Bronner in to kind of speak to our committee. Planning Commission, Ian is not here to report on that. I don't suppose anybody has anything else from the Planning Commission. We heard that they're getting ready to take a look at the update to the NFP map. All right, moving on to Tree Committee. Gail, how, if you had a chance to meet, what's the update there? Gail, I believe you are muted, or you're just talking very quietly.
You are right. I was muted.
Okay.
The tree committee did not meet again this month. I've reached out to Anthony Ladd, but have not heard back because I want to bring some stuff up to him about updating the tree protocol and a few other topics, but he's not responded. I'll backtrack a bit to the wildlife and natural resource protection, which I don't have much. I know Aaron had submitted a question to city about the ability to ban Avitrol, and I don't know if I wanted to see if you have heard back from, they were going to ask the city attorney whether, you know, what the process was about that. You haven't heard back.
I have not heard back. I imagine that's still under a pile of papers on his desk.
Okay. So I don't really have any other things to report. I know you had asked me a while back about the you know, whether we needed to weigh in on the dam removal that is likely to happen this year in Millen Park. And I did reach out to the DNR, and the dam is, you know, of course, owned by the city, and it's not tall enough to be under the jurisdiction of the DNR. And but it is under wetland regulation, so it has to be permitted before it is removed. The city or the state is in favor, of course, of dam removal. They have provided money to the city in order to contribute to having that done. But the state is not the one who's going to be doing that. So I imagine at some point in the near future, or sometime in the future, that dam will will be taken down, and I don't know what the plans are to do, you know, any mitigation around that area, or maybe some nice wildlife planting like they've done elsewhere in Millen Park. So so anyway, I don't think it's an issue that ECC needs to be weighing in on. It sounds like everything is under control, but if there's an opportunity to suggest native plants to be used in that area to restore the stream banks once the work is done, we could certainly offer that opinion.
And that is something that Rob can maybe communicate, talk about next time you make it to Parks and Rec. What the plans are there as far as what it's going to look like after that dam might be removed. Okay.
Sorry, was that a question or assignment?
No, I'm just saying that you could probably add that to your topics you might want to bring up at next Parks and Rec.
Sure thing. I'll make a note.
Cool. Planning Commission, Street Committee, Asylum Lake Policy and Management Council. Sharon or Lori, what's up with the Asylum Lake?
They talked about in May, there's going to be some garlic mustard pool dates. So May 1st and May 8th, the sign up, I believe Lori might know better than me, but I think that's via the ALPA website. And that's 11 to 12 and 1 to 3 as 4 different options. It's going to be limited because of COVID numbers wise for how many people can be in each session, but they're going to definitely be looking for volunteers there. And then I guess the other main thing that we've been talking about is we've been working on pieces of approval towards helping with some water quality issues that are coming from all of the road basically, and they're working towards making that be fixed basically. Summary.
The registration is going to be kind of complicated because of COVID restrictions. So by the end of March or beginning of April, there'll be an announcement about the fact that this is going to happen on the Facebook, and as well we'll be reaching out to our membership, and then the registration itself will be on the ALPA webpage, which I recommend that you all take a look at because it's beautiful. Besides registering for this, and we really hope a lot of people will come out because it will be a chance to see parts of the preserve that are basically off limits because they're off the trails, and also to give something back. The Facebook now has over 1,600 followers on it. So we have a constituency like we've never had before, and we're really excited about that. We're also hoping that the preserve doesn't get loved to death by the increased number of visitors and dogs who leave, unfortunately, their signature sometimes, in spite of all the doggy bags that we have. And of course, the big attraction now is the beavers and the beaver house. So hopefully this will bring a lot of people out. Hopefully we haven't settled the rain date question yet, but at the next ECC meeting, we'll be up to full steam on that project.
What was that website, Lori?
Pardon?
What was the website that you said offline of Facebook?
The Asylum Lake Preservation Association website.
I will, I'll share that website, Rob, to the ECC, hopefully a little later tonight.
Good. We don't have the registration form up yet because we want to get all our ducks in a row before we start inviting people to come in that we're sure we're going to be able to take care of them, put them to work and so forth. And that COVID, at this point, the COVID form that has to be filled out or the information that has to be gotten, we just don't want that to cause a big old lineup on a cool May morning at the Drake Road entrance while people get sort of processed through. And people are kind of tired of waiting in lines for things like COVID shots and other things. So we'll have that all in shape by the first week in April.
Okay. And Lori, we're not going to hear from the Garlic Mustard Association people, are we? I don't.
You mean the protection of the garlic mustard?
Yeah. Society for the Protection of Garlic Mustard.
Garlic mustard, yeah,
Well, we
garlic
don't-
mustard pesto recipe, all the whole thing.
Yeah, we
No,
don't- Okay.
no, we
Okay.
will diplomatically take care of those people.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin.
Just want to make sure all voices are heard. That's
Right,
that's
right.
all. All right. Parks and Rec. Rob, I saw because everything is streamed now, so you can't do anything without it going live to the whole world. So good job. Thanks very much for checking out Parks and Rec. Did you have any kind of notes for us?
No, it was, I think they finally had an opportunity to meet the new rep, I guess. So I did my best to try to explain what our intent was to work with them and everything. And they mentioned that the ambassador program was moving forward slowly, I guess, gaining interest on citizens who'd like to adopt their local park. But I hope to hear more about that. And if there's anything more, I passed along the master gardeners and the wealth of experience and occupations of our committee as best I knew them to be.
Yeah, I thought you did a good job, Rob. It's really the whole point really is just communication, just information sharing. If there's something that comes up there that we might have interest in, or something that we might have a question, like we said with, like we just said, if, is there some interest in planting natives in place of what, whatever it's going to look like after that dam might be taken out. That's pretty much it. Just facilitating communication.
Can I?
I didn't disappoint, and if there's anything else that somebody wants me to bring beyond what has already been discussed, I'm available.
There's just one thing I would love to have you, if you have an opportunity at the next Parks and Rec meeting, to maybe, plant a seed or put bend somebody's ear a bit. I was also kind of a fly on the wall at that meeting because they were supposedly going to talk about something that I wanted to be there, and that didn't really end up being part of the agenda, but I was there anyway. So there was a lot of discussion that they had towards the end about putting in a BMX bike path on this small parcel of park called Glen Park, South Glen Park. And that is really quite a small parcel of land, and it is on quite a hillside. And so, I would have some concerns myself about erosion and that kind of thing. But they welcomed a new member on that advisory board last month, and that is Rachel Hughes Nielsen. She is a landscape architect and a good person. So I would just maybe, if you have the opportunity to query whether Rachel might have had an opportunity or could take an opportunity to visit that parcel and weigh in with her opinion on whether that parcel would be appropriate for this, this bike path. And if so, how can it be done in the most environmentally appropriate way?
Absolutely, yeah. Make a note of it now and make sure to, if she's there, it's addressed. If not, at least gets on their radar.
Right. I mean, even if she's not there, it would be like, well, ask her about it, because we want to hear from her, before it happens, because she's got the professional expertise to be able to help make those decisions.
It sounded like one of the existing members on the committee had worked with her within the city. So I think there's more than one professional there, but for sure, I'll pass that along. Absolutely.
Yeah, he is the head of Parks and Recs, and so he has worked with her company, for many public projects. And but he's not a landscape architect. She is the one who's the landscape architect. So we really would love to hear from her.
Okay, sure thing.
All right, thanks, Rob. Wellhead Protection Program Committee. Melissa, are you still here with us?
Yep.
I apologize to keep you so long. I'm sure you are ready to get to dinner. Let's go ahead and invite Jean Talanda when she has next opportunity, whether that's April, May.
Yeah, she had mentioned to me that she'd probably have something ready for April, but I will get with her and confirm and let you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
It looks like Scott has commenced his St. Patrick's Day activities. And so we're not going to have an update on Kalamazoo River watershed. Any general discussion on all of this silt, this massive ecological catastrophe that is ongoing as this silt continues to pile up along banks Kalamazoo River and then into the lake in Allegan. Sounds like the company did some, and I can't remember if this happened we talked about this last month, where they've begun to try to dredge some of that out, but only a very short distance from their physical property. Does anybody else have any update on that?
I'd say if people want to keep following that, Kalamazoo River Alliance on Facebook has been trying to keep things updated. It's a bunch of local people, fishermen and things that are trying to keep everyone up to date. There's been a lot of articles. So I think last time I shared kind of an article, but I don't have an awesome update right now, but I do feel like there's been several things that have come up in the last month.
Okay. Yeah, it's just terrible. And, the cost associated with trying to rectify the situation, is just got to be ungodly. And then where do you put all that stuff too? So I'm not sure what's in the works or what the ECC can do, to encourage the city to continue to push for some kind of cleanup. I don't know. That money isn't just going to magically appear. So anybody's got any great ideas or reads anything, let's keep kind of thinking about that. I feel like we are kind of failing as a community, that we are not able to come up with a good solution to the issue. So Order Task Force, we have another Order Task Force meeting next Thursday, and we'll get an update and see how things are moving along with that, with the city and with graphic packaging. Last piece, I think I must have skipped over. Skip over something. I'm going to meet with. I'm going to speak with Rebecca Kick from the city also next week about the deer population group that is getting organized so that the ECC can have some input. So the whole purpose of that is just to ask her how she would like us, how the city is looking for us to participate. Okie dokie. 6:23. Any other comments for the good of the order?
We do have 2 public comments.
Great. Let's hear them.
Okay, one moment. Oh, you're going to need to stop sharing your screen first.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, sorry. I thought I could kick you off, but I couldn't. Here it comes.
Hello, this is Richard Stewart. I'm a resident of the city in the Southtown neighborhood. I'd like to ask the Environmental Concerns Committee to help us protect Southtown's last remaining natural green space, watershed, and wildlife habitat. The Natural Features Protection Board did add it to the map. There are 9 parcels between Lake and Stockbridge that are natural. There are hundreds of trees, heavy wildlife, and it is a natural watershed for an area that is known to flood. Parts of the 9 acres are considered wetland, and a predatory developer wishes to pave it over with a 77-car parking lot to support a small apartment complex. Directly across the street is an already paved site the state of Michigan used to have offices at that is now vacant for sale. There are multiple sites available to this developer, but they choose to destroy our last natural feature, our last natural space. We ask your help. We've been fighting it for 2 years, and in 2019, this developer was told no for rezoning because the board said it was not the appropriate location for the project and he should find another location. Well, he has since put the property manager on the Natural Features Board and are fighting to pursue this location anyway in spite of the neighborhood. So Southtown neighborhood would like your assistance to protect our last natural feature and our green space. It is the way we will remain sustainable. It has been natural space for decades. It used to be a celery field back in the old days, but is now a wooded natural space. It helps keep the pollution down, quiet, and a peaceful oasis in an otherwise paved area. Thank you for your time.
Yes, my name is Tina McClinton. I live in Kalamazoo. I live on Lake Street. And I was calling because we had concerns about the flooding and the city wanting to build and take away our last green space to build in a floodplain. I was calling to see if anybody would help us try to save this green space on between Lake and Stockbridge, because it helps us with flooding. It has its own natural watershed. It has a wide span of wildlife habitat. Now we have a falcon. We just had some coyotes, but they're gone now. But now we have a big, pretty falcon that hangs around out in the yard, in the woods. And we've been trying to save this natural green space for about 2 years now. I don't know what this meeting is about. I just turned on to it, but we need to fix the infrastructure in Southtown neighborhood. People should not get flooded 2 to 3 times a year. It's not right to make someone have to live like that. Every time you build, every time you take away green space, we flood over here more and more. The infrastructure is so bad, it's crumbling underneath. The storm drains fill up. Every time it rains or the ponds overflow, the storm drains fill up all over the neighborhood. That's what runs down my street, is the storm water comes up through the storm drains, backs up the sanitary sewers. This is what backs up in our homes, our streets, the basements. And I'd like to, if I could get some help, I came to you guys and asked you guys, would you help us save this green space that keeps our homes from being underwater? It's a nice little piece of country in the city. There's lots of animals in there. It's nice, it's quiet, it's peaceful, and we need this piece of land to survive. Since the city's not going to fix the flooding, the city's not going to even try to fix the flooding in this neighborhood. The city's not going to do anything to the infrastructure, even though it's not working properly, because if it was, this would not be happening 2 to 3 times a year. To say it never happened until 2008. And then it happened again in 2017 when KBCC took away 12 acres of natural green space to build. Now we flood 2 to 3 times every year instead of once every 10 years. And it's not just water. We need this piece of... Thank you very much, and have a good day.
And that is it at this time.
All right, thanks very much. Rob, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, yes, I did. But before I ask that real question, is there a more precise thing? I'm trying to look it up on Google Maps, but and I know it was brought up last month, I feel like, but the green space she's talking about, where is that at?
Yeah, so it is in between Lake Street and Stockbridge. So if you're looking at Google Earth, there is Upjohn Park, and then just west of Upjohn Park is the KVCC building that has, don't they have like the culinary program there, I think, and like the brewing program maybe.
Yeah.
So Tina's house is directly across the street from that.
Okay.
So that's the area that we're talking about. And on the back side of that, on Stockbridge, there's basically a big open gravel parking lot that used to be Brothers, the bar, before it was burned down by what I would assume is a terrorist, because Brothers was a popular bar for gay and lesbian community.
Mm.
So we myself and the previous chair, Paul Manstrom, we went and took a tour of the of that site. Tina, we met with Tina, and she gave us kind of a guided tour of that area back there. There are some kind of like small ponds, and it's pretty thickly wooded. There were also a couple of spots in there where it looked like somebody had some kind of makeshift encampments, where, people are, whatever, if they're homeless living out there or kind of partying out there. It did not look like a safe place to be. But we've also seen the proposed site plans for that possible development there, which would be low-cost housing. And the site plan includes several acres of open green space. I think the idea is to clear out some of those trees, but to leave some of the bigger, more mature trees. And essentially most of that acre, I think that land is about, did they say 4 acres or 9 acres? I can't remember the exact number, but the majority of that land will be left as green space. And I would love for our committee to review again that proposed site plan. We've heard that, the Tina's concerned that flooding is an issue because of development right there at that area. But my understanding is that flooding is an region-wide issue. And the presentation that we had from Director Baker a few months ago about his big plan to build a large mitigation system, essentially a massive pipe that would reroute that overflow water from the Kalamazoo River to try to put a serious dent in, the next time we get one of those big rains that floods the entire area. That is really the a more pressing issue that we could look at in terms of mitigating flooding.
Okay.
Well, I would still be interested in taking a look at that area, but I also really love to get Bobby's input if we can get Bobby on board to go look at it from a hydrologist.
Yeah.
With a hydrologist background.
Right. Well, I am happy to get a hold of Tina again and see if she wants to kind of give us a little guided tour, because we'd have to kind of walk through her driveway to get back and kind of look around in there. So I can try to set that up if anybody is interested to go and look at that little patch of land again.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
I'd be interested too. And like I said, especially I would, try to make it work with Bobby's schedule, because I think his input would be helpful and valuable.
Okay.
I'd also like to know those comments. were a lot about the NFP phase 2. And I believe at the previously we have submitted recommendations to say, hey, we like this, and I think we should do something similar once we see the fleshed out phase 2 plan. I don't remember if we did that for phase 2 before it failed at the planning commission this last year or not. But I think that's one way that we can show our support. That would be nice.
Okay.
I'd be interested in, if you have a tour of that land, Aaron, if you want to let me know about it, if I'm available, I'd also like to check that out.
Okay, cool. I will put everybody on that email then in a few days.
Yeah, and sorry. That was just a follow-up to that. My original question was, the city kind of celebrated, they planted 100 new street trees and everything. And I was just wondering, with Arbor Day coming up and how Kalamazoo has been a tree city for a while, I noticed that there's actually tiers of the type of tree city you can be, and whether or not it doesn't look like we've made any significant improvements beyond this 100 street trees. And then I was just wondering if there's any way we could take a step forward to being a even better tree city, I guess.
I agree. I think we've still been cutting down more than we've been growing. Gail might remember more of that presentation that we just went to a couple weeks ago.
I'm trying to bring it back. Oh, right, the one that Jessica Simmons did. Yeah, that she would be awesome to have come to the ECC. She's got a phenomenal presentation on urban forests, and she's actually giving it again. When is she giving it? There's something coming up that she's giving that presentation at. Now it's slipping my mind. But one of the things that I'm turning, which could include this tree thing, is I'm plotting for Kalamazoo to become an urban bird treaty city. And so there's many pieces of this, but certainly forest cover is part of it, and trees, in order to make a city better for birds and makes it better for people. And so, I'm planning to interdigitate, and infiltrate many different parts of the city and organizations. So that could be tied in with part of it. It's like we could be a better tree city, and that could get us the urban bird, treaty, and vice versa, because it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities for grants as well. So I think those things could support each other, I guess is what I'm saying.
All right.
Thanks.
Awesome. Any other comments for the good of the order before we wrap it up? All right, seeing none, thanks very much, folks. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day, and the meeting is adjourned. I will see you next month.
Bye.
Hey, Andy, are you still there?
Yes,
Okay, and are we still streaming?
that's up to Amanda.
Oh, okay. Amanda, can you end this?